I was 2 weeks post-surgery, barely able to stand on my crutches. When my brother demanded I provide free childcare for his kids so he could go skiing in Switzerland. He laughed when I said, sure. But he wasn't laughing when he got back and found a $4,500 nanny bill and a court summons to sell the house he lived in for free. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The vibrating buzz of my phone on the side table was an agony. It wasn't the noise, it was the logistics. To reach it, I had to plant my left foot, the one with the pins in it, firmly on the hardwood floor, grip the padded handles of my crutches, and hoist all my weight onto my bruised armpits. The 7-foot journey from the recliner to the table felt like a marathon. By the time I swiped to answer, I was out of breath and sweating. Caroline, thank goodness you picked up. It was my brother, Nathan. His voice was breezy, full of the manufactured urgency he used when he was about to ask for a massive favor. Nathan, I managed, sinking back into the cushions, my leg throbbing. What's wrong? Oh, nothing's wrong, he said, laughing it off. That was his signature move. Hey, listen, Steph and I just scored the most amazing last-minute deal. A week in Gstaad. All-inclusive, ski in, ski out. Can you believe it? I looked around my living room, which had become my entire world. The physical therapist's bands were looped over the doorknob. My medication was sorted into a grim, rainbow-colored pill organizer on the coffee table. The air was stale with the scent of microwaved soup and antiseptic. A car had run a red light and T-boned my sedan, leaving me with a shattered tibia and 3 fractured ribs. Skiing, I repeated, my voice flat. That sounds ambitious. Exactly, we're so psyched, we leave Thursday, which brings me to the favor. I closed my eyes. I knew what was coming. I was the responsible one. I was Caroline, the financial auditor, the one who planned, saved, and fixed everyone else's problems. Even now, injured and on medical leave, I was apparently still on duty. We just can't find a sitter on such short notice, he barreled on, not waiting for a response. And honestly, the prices they're charging are criminal, so Steph had a brilliant idea. Since you're home all day anyway, just recovering, you can just watch Leo and Mia. It's perfect. We'll drop them off Thursday morning. The audacity of it was breathtaking. It wasn't a question. It was a declaration. I pictured myself, on heavy pain medication, trying to navigate stairs with a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I pictured trying to make them meals when I could barely carry a glass of water. Nathan, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I'm on crutches. I just had surgery. I can't even get to my own bathroom without help. He sighed, a long-suffering sound, as if I were the one being difficult. Oh, come on, Caro. It's not like you're running a marathon. You'll just be on the couch. They're great kids. They've got their tablets. They'll basically take care of themselves. It's just for 10 days. 10 days, my voice cracked. You said a week. Yeah, well, with travel time, he trailed off. Look, you're in the big family house, right? It's not like you're cramped for space. He had twisted the knife without even knowing it. He wasn't in the family house. He was. He and Stephanie had been living in our parents' sprawling 4-bedroom house, a house I co-owned 50-50, completely rent-free for almost a decade. I was in my small 2-bedroom apartment, which I had just paid to have retrofitted with grab bars and a ramp. The sheer, blinding entitlement of the man to ask his injured sister, the co-owner of the home he lived in for free, to provide childcare so he could go on a luxury vacation. It was staggering. A different kind of pain, sharp and cold, cut through the fog of my medication. It was the pain of a lifetime of being taken for granted, of being the reliable, boring older sister while he got to be the charming, irresponsible favorite. And as I sat there, trapped in my own broken body, something inside me finally snapped. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, clean precision. "You know what, Nathan?" I said, my voice suddenly light. "You're right, it's fine." He paused, clearly surprised at the lack of a fight. "You'll do it. Seriously. Oh, Caro, you're a lifesaver. Stephanie will be so thrilled." "Sure," I said, cutting him off. The word felt strange and powerful. "Drop them off. You two go have a wonderful time. You deserve it." There was a moment of stunned silence, and then he let out a whoop. "You're the best, Caro, the absolute best. We'll owe you. Well, we'll owe you one." "You certainly will," I murmured, as he rattled off their flight to Thai. LS and drop-off times. When I finally ended the call, I didn't try to get up. I just sat there in the quiet room, the throb in my leg a dull counterpoint to the new, icy clarity in my mind. He thought he was getting a free babysitter. He thought he was taking advantage of his injured sister one last time. He had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just his sister. I was a financial auditor. My entire career was built on finding discrepancies, assessing risk, and executing precise, legally binding consequences. He wanted me to watch his kids. Sure. But he was about to find out what my services truly cost. The betrayal wasn't just the request. It was the assumption that I had no value beyond what I could do for him. The silence in my apartment after the call was heavy. For a few minutes, I allowed the full weight of the insult to settle on me. It wasn't just the skiing trip. It was the "since you're home all day anyway," as if my recovery was a vacation. It was the casual dismissal of my physical limitations. It was the decade of paying my half of the property taxes and insurance on a house I couldn't even use, while he and Stephanie posted photos of their designer purchases and weekend getaways, all funded by the money they were saving. My ribs ached, a sharp reminder of the accident. I was vulnerable, yes, but I wasn't weak. And I was, above all, meticulous. I reached for my laptop, a difficult and painful maneuver that involved a grabber tool and a lot of careful balancing. The first thing I did was send an email to my doctor, outlining my brother's request in neutral clinical terms. "To confirm," I wrote, "am I medically cleared to be the sole caregiver for 2 children, ages 9 and 7, for a 10-day period while recovering from tibial plateau fracture surgery and on my current regimen of medication names?" The reply came back in under an hour. It was emphatic. "Absolutely not, Caroline. You are to be engaging in no weight-bearing activity. You are not to be lifting anything over 5 pounds. Your medication can cause significant drowsiness, and your mobility is severely compromised. Taking on the care of 2 young children is not only medically inadvisable, it is a significant risk to your recovery and their safety. I am writing a formal letter to that effect. Please let me know if you need me to speak to your family member directly." I smiled. "Thank you, Dr. Evans. A copy of that letter will be perfect." That was document 1. Next, I opened a new browser window and began my research. Premium bonded nanny services, 24/7 care. I wasn't looking for a teenager to watch cartoons. I was looking for a corporate-level, insured, and fully vetted service. I found one that specialized in last-minute and high-needs placements. I called them. Yes, I have a rather unusual situation, I explained to the intake specialist. I need 2 full-time live-in nannies for a 10-day period starting this Thursday. The children will be staying at their own home. I gave the address of my parents' house, the one Nathan lived in, but the request is coming from me. It's a complicated family matter. The parents will be unreachable. The nannies will have sole charge. And you, the specialist asked. I will be the emergency contact, I said. I live nearby, but I am medically incapacitated and cannot be present. The nannies will report to me via text twice a day. The children's parents believe I will be the one caring for them. This must be handled with discretion. The woman on the line was quiet for a moment. Ma'am, this sounds like a significant legal and financial liability. The parents are leaving the children with you, but you are delegating that care. That is correct, I said, and I will be paying the full 10-day fee plus the emergency placement surcharge up front on my credit card. I will also be emailing you a signed medical directive from my orthopedic surgeon stating that I am physically incapable of performing childcare duties. The children's father has been informed of my medical state. This is his solution. I am simply executing it. This, she understood. It was a transaction. By the time I hung up, I had a contract in my inbox and a $4,500 charge pending on my Amex. That was document 2. My final call was to my lawyer, the one who handled my parents' estate. Hi, Frank, I said. I need to open a file. It's about Mom and Dad's house. No, not a buyout. I'm initiating a partition sale. The line was silent. Caroline, Frank said slowly, that's the nuclear option. Are you sure? That forces a sale on the open market. It's messy. I am sure, Frank, I said, looking at the letter from my doctor. My brother's family has been living there for 9 years without paying me a cent of rent, all while refusing my offers to buy me out at a fair price. Now, my own financial and medical situation has changed. I need my equity, and I need it now. They have rejected every reasonable offer. I'm done. Being reasonable. Well, Frank said, a new energy in his voice. It's your legal right. I'll get the petition drafted. We can have him served as soon as he's back in the country. Perfect, I said. He returns in 10 days. When Nathan and Stephanie dropped off the kids that Thursday, they were buzzing with excitement. Stephanie, clad in a new white ski jacket, didn't even get out of the car. Nathan herded Leo and Mia, who were dragging rolling suitcases, up my apartment ramp. Here they are, he boomed, kissing me on the cheek. I recoiled slightly from the scent of his expensive cologne. Tablets are charged, Steph packed their bags. You're a star, Caro, seriously. Have a safe flight, Nathan, I said, my voice smooth as ice. Don't worry about a thing here. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. He saw the crutches, the brace on my leg, the exhaustion in my face. A flicker of something, guilt maybe, crossed his face. You sure you're okay with this? You look tired. I gave him the brightest, most brittle smile I could manage. I'll be fine. I'm just going to be on the couch anyway. He nodded, relieved to have his conscience cleared. Right. Okay, kids, be good for your Aunt Caroline. We'll see you in 10 days. He was out the door before the kids could even say goodbye. Leo and Mia stood in my entryway, looking small and uncertain. Aunt Caroline, Leo said, your leg looks sore. It is, sweetie, I said, which is why you're not staying here. We're going on a little adventure. I called the car service I'd booked. When it arrived, I painstakingly maneuvered myself into the back, and we drove the 15 minutes to my house, the one he lived in. As we pulled up, two women in matching navy polo shirts were getting out of their own car. "Miss Caroline," one asked. "That's me," I said. "This is Leo and Mia. This is their home. Your keys are in the lockbox. My lawyer has a copy of the contract. The fridge is stocked as per our discussion. You have my number." The children looked confused. "Auntie," Mia whispered, "who are they?" "They," I said, "are the people who are actually going to watch you, because your dad, well, your dad forgot one crucial thing." "What?" Leo asked. I looked at the big, beautiful house I had paid for but never enjoyed. He forgot that I'm not a pushover. I'm an auditor. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand my brother. Nathan is 7 years younger than me, and in our family, those 7 years were a chasm. I was the child of our parents' struggling youth, the one who wore hand-me-downs, who excelled in school because it was the only thing I could control, who got a scholarship and a sensible degree in finance. I was the one who sat with our mother through her checkbook, teaching her how to budget. I was the one who co-signed my parents' mortgage on their forever home when my father's credit took a hit, putting my own name and my hard-earned savings on the line. I was, in short, responsible. Then came Nathan. He was the child of their middle-aged comfort. He was the miracle, the charmer, the boy who could do no wrong. While I was balancing ledgers in my college dorm, Nathan was getting a new car for his 16th birthday. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build my career, he was finding himself on a post-college trip to Southeast Asia, funded by Mom and Dad. He met Stephanie during that trip. She was, and is, a woman who seems perpetually curated for Instagram. She runs a part-time luxury blog that seems to be a thinly veiled excuse to demand free products and expensive meals. She's beautiful, I suppose, in a sharp, high-maintenance way. From the moment she joined our family, her mission was clear: to ensure the lifestyle she felt she deserved was funded, preferably by someone else. When our parents passed away within a year of each other, I was the executor. I handled the funerals, the legal filings, the mountain of paperwork, all while grieving. Nathan and Stephanie, who had just had Leo, were too overwhelmed. The will was simple. Everything, including the house, was split 50-50 between us. At the time, they were living in a tiny apartment. "Caro," Nathan had said, his eyes filled with what I then believed were real tears, "we can't afford a place like this on our own. But for the kids, to grow up in their grandparents' house, it would mean the world. Just let us live here for a year or two. We'll maintain it. It's an investment for both of us." I was tired, I was grieving, and I loved my parents' home. I didn't want to sell it yet. "Okay," I said, "a year, then we reassess." That was 9 years ago. The reassessment never happened. Every time I brought it up, it was a catastrophe. First, Mia was born. Then, Nathan almost got a huge promotion. Then, Stephanie needed to invest in her brand. They never paid a dime of rent. They complained about the property taxes, which I paid. They let the landscaping go to seed until I hired a service. The house, my asset, my inheritance, had become their free ride. 2 years ago, I'd had enough. I offered them a formal, notarized buyout. I had the house appraised. It was worth a cool $1.2 million, meaning their $600,000 share was already theirs. All they had to do was secure a loan for my $600,000 share. I met them for dinner to present the offer. Stephanie scoffed, literally, into her wine glass. 600,000, she said, as if I'd named an absurd number. Caroline, that's ridiculous. We've been maintaining this property for years. That's equity. We should get a discount for all our hard work. What hard work? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The overgrown garden, the leaking roof I paid to have fixed last winter, the property taxes I cover. It's about the presence, Nathan jumped in, always her backup. It's a big house. It needs to be lived in. We're doing you a favor, keeping it secure. Then came their counteroffer. They would pay me $150,000 for my half. $150,000, I repeated, for a $600,000 asset. It's all we can get approved for, Stephanie said, shrugging, not meeting my eye. She was wearing a new designer watch I knew cost at least $5,000. Take it or leave it, Caroline. Are you really going to kick your own brother and your niece and nephew out onto the street? I saw them for exactly what they were then. They weren't family. They were parasites. They had calculated correctly that I was too decent, too bound by my love for our parents to force the issue. They had weaponized my own sense of responsibility against me. I'll think about it, I'd said, folding the appraisal and placing it back in my purse. The car accident changed everything. Staring at a ceiling for weeks on end, facing months of lost income and towering medical bills, my asset was no longer an abstract inheritance. It was my future. It was my ability to pay for the care I needed. My decency had a price, and I could no longer afford to pay it. And then Nathan called. He didn't call to ask how I was. He didn't offer to bring me groceries. He called to ask his injured, financially strapped sister to be his unpaid servant in her own apartment because the house he was living in for free was too small for him to bother with. Oh, they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten that I was an auditor, and I kept all the receipts. The nanny service, Golden Apple Guardians, was almost terrifyingly efficient. I had them based at Nathan's house. I had given them a full brief, including the kids' schedules, food allergies, and the login for the streaming services. I had also given them a security code for the house, my code, the owner's code, which Nathan and Stephanie had probably forgotten even existed. The nannies, a pair of brisk, kind women named Maria and June, were instructed to text me twice a day with a simple "all's well" and a photo. The first one came through an hour after I'd returned to my apartment. It was a picture of Mia and Leo sitting at their massive granite-topped kitchen island, eating macaroni and cheese. They looked perfectly happy. I leaned back, my leg propped on its mountain of pillows, and allowed myself a small, tight smile. The first part of the trap was set. The bait was taken. Now, for phase 2, I picked up the phone and dialed my lawyer. "Frank," I said, "they're in the air, let's move." The 10-day ski trip was the most productive period of my recovery. While Nathan and Stephanie were posting filtered photos of fondue and snow-capped peaks, I was executing a full-scale audit of their lives. My shift from victim to strategist was absolute. The pain in my leg was a constant, throbbing reminder of what was at stake. My financial future, my ability to live independently, was tied up in that house, and they had been holding it hostage for 9 years. No more. The clever trap wasn't just the nannies or the partition suit. It was the leverage I needed to win the fight that would follow. I knew Nathan and Stephanie. When served with a lawsuit, they wouldn't be apologetic. They would be vicious. They would paint me as the cruel, heartless sister, and they would play the victim card, claiming poverty. My job as an auditor was to prove they were lying. I started with the documents Frank and I had been quietly gathering for the past 2 years, ever since their insulting $150,000 offer. First, the easy stuff. My own bank statements showing 9 years of property tax payments, insurance premiums, and major repair bills. The roof, the new water heater, the plumbing disaster in the guest bath. It totaled over $85,000. Then the deeper dive. Frank, with my legal authority as co-owner, subpoenaed the utility and mortgage records for the house. The mortgage, which I had co-signed for my parents, had been paid off 5 years ago. Nathan had forgotten to mention that. The utilities, however, were a different story. He and Stephanie were constantly late, not because they couldn't pay, but because they were disorganized and arrogant. There were multiple shut-off warnings. It painted a picture not of poverty, but of chaos and entitlement. But the real gold mine was Stephanie's luxury, blog, and her public social media. She was the antagonist, but she was also my star witness. While the nannies sent me pictures of the kids playing peacefully in the backyard, I was saving screenshots. There was Stephanie on a girls' trip to Napa 2 months ago, holding up a $300 bottle of wine. Tagline, "Living my best life." Blessed, there was Nathan grinning from the driver's seat of a brand new leased luxury SUV 4 months ago. The new family wagon. Upgrade, there was a post from Stephanie 6 months ago complaining about the dated kitchen in the house, my house, and linking to a dream kitchen Pinterest board filled with $100,000 plus renovations. A girl can dream. Our starter home kitchen is just so drab. Starter home. The $1.2 million house she'd lived in for free for a decade was her starter home. I cross-referenced the dates of these posts with the utility warnings. The week she was in Napa, a shut-off notice for the water bill had been mailed. The day Nathan posted his new SUV, their car insurance, which was bundled with the homeowner's policy I paid, had lapsed. They weren't poor. They were just awful. They had money for luxuries, but not for necessities, and certainly not for me. The nanny service, Golden Apple Guardians, was my masterstroke. It wasn't just about childcare. It was about establishing a baseline. I was paying top dollar for the best, most professional care. When Maria, one of the nannies, texted me on day 3, I knew I had them. "Hi, Caroline," the text read. "Just a heads up. We had to do a major grocery run. There was literally no food in the house for the children. All we found was half a bottle of vodka, some expired yogurt, and a jar of olives. We've stocked the fridge and pantry with healthy meals and snacks. The receipt will be added to the final invoice." I stared at the text. They had left for a 10-day international trip, expecting their injured sister to be the caregiver, and hadn't even bought groceries for their own children. The rage that filled me was so cold it was almost calming. "Thank you, Maria," I texted back. "Please spare no expense. Get them whatever they need. Document everything." That was the why. Now for the how. Frank was ready. The partition suit was filed. The petition was with the court. A process server was on standby for the day of their return. "Now, Caroline," Frank warned me over the phone, "they're going to fight this. They'll try to countersue. They'll claim they've made improvements to the home, that their sweat equity entitles them to a larger share." "Let them," I said, looking at the photo of the near-empty fridge. "Bring me the final invoice from the nanny service the moment it's ready. And Frank, find me the best, most aggressive real estate agent in the city, the one who sells homes in that neighborhood. I want a market analysis done by Monday." My leg ached, my ribs felt like they were on fire. But for the first time since the accident, I felt powerful. I wasn't just sitting on the couch, recovering. I was taking my life back. Nathan and Stephanie had forgotten the most important rule of dealing with an auditor. We always find out the truth. And the truth, in this case, was that their free ride was about to come to a very sudden, very expensive stop. They had built their house of cards on my generosity, and I was about to pull the foundation. The 10-day trip ended, as all things do. I got the text from Nathan, landed, exhausted. What a trip. We'll be at your place in an hour to grab the kids. Looking forward to it, I texted back. See you soon. I spent that hour preparing. I was out of the recliner and seated at my dining room table, a position that felt more like a seat of power. It had taken me 20 minutes to get set up. My crutches were leaning against the wall. On the table in front of me, I had 3 things. The invoice, a crisp, itemized bill from Golden Apple Guardians for $4,572.50. The base fee plus the $72.50 for the grocery run. The audit, a slim, spiral-bound report I had printed, containing the social media posts, the utility warnings, and the timeline of their luxury purchases versus their neglected bills. The summons, a thick manila envelope delivered by Frank's office that morning, containing the legally filed petition for the partition sale of 1245 Willow Creek Drive. I had arranged for the nannies to drop Leo and Mia off at my apartment 30 minutes before Nathan and Stephanie were due to arrive. The children were happy, bubbling with stories about Miss Maria and Miss June and the trip they'd taken to the Science Museum. They were so nice, Auntie, Mia said, hugging me carefully around my waist. Can they babysit us again? We'll see, sweetie, I said, patting her head. Now, why don't you two go watch a movie in the living room? Your parents will be here very soon. As they settled on the couch, I felt a pang of sadness for them. They were good kids, caught between 2 sets of truly awful parents and an aunt who was about to bring their world crashing down. But this wasn't for them. This was for me. The buzzer rang. I pressed the button. I heard the elevator doors and then the sound of their suitcases rolling down the hall. A key fumbled in my lock. Nathan still had a key, another thing that would be changing soon, and the door swung open. We're back, Nathan sang, wheeling a massive suitcase inside. Stephanie followed, looking tan, annoyed, and impossibly chic in sunglasses and a cream-colored tracksuit. Kids, Nathan yelled, let's go, we're tired. Leo and Mia ran out and hugged their parents, who gave them obligatory, one-armed pats. Hey, Caro, Nathan said, already turning to leave. Kids look fine. You survived, see? Told you it would be easy. Actually, Nathan, I said, my voice cutting through his breezy dismissal. We need to talk. Please sit down. The tone of my voice stopped him. He turned, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. Stephanie let out an audible sigh and leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. Can this wait, Caroline? We're exhausted, and I have a mountain of laundry. No, I said, it can't. Sit. Reluctantly, they took the 2 chairs opposite me at the table. I let the silence stretch, the only sound being the distant cartoon noises from the living room. So, Nathan said, trying for a jovial tone. What's up? You need us to. I don't know, buy you dinner for helping out. I slid the first paper across the table, the invoice. Nathan picked it up, his smile fading. What's this? Golden Apple Guardians, $4,500. Is this a joke? That, I said calmly, is the bill for the professional, bonded childcare you received for the last 10 days. You'll note they included the charge for the groceries they had to buy, since you left your children with no food. Stephanie's head snapped up. What did you say? What is this? I was medically forbidden from caring for your children, as you know, I continued, my voice level. My doctor provided a letter confirming it. So, when you insisted, I did the only responsible thing. I hired professionals to ensure your children were safe and cared for. I paid the bill up front to secure the booking. This is your invoice. Nathan's face was turning a dull, angry red. You hired people. Without asking us, we left them with you. You left them with an injured woman on crutches who is on powerful medication. You didn't ask, Nathan, you told me. I simply made the arrangements. This is insane, Stephanie burst out, grabbing the paper. $4,000, we're not paying this. This is fraud. Actually, I said, it's a parental responsibility expense. I have a contract and I have the medical directive. I'd call it a lesson in consequences. A lesson, Nathan sputtered, rising from his chair. Who do you think you are? You tricked us. You said, sure, you let us go. I did, I agreed. I said sure. And sure meant I would surely make certain your children were safe since you clearly weren't going to. Sure meant I would surely handle the problem you created. You assumed sure meant free. That was your mistake. You. Nathan was at a loss for words, his face mottled with rage. He was so used to me backing down, to me being the peace keeper, he had never seen me like this. Stephanie, however, recovered faster. Her eyes narrowed into tiny slits. You think you're so clever, don't you? Sitting here in your little apartment, you're just jealous. You're jealous of our trip, jealous of our family, jealous of our house. Your house, I repeated, my voice dangerously soft. That's funny. I thought it was our house, the one I pay the taxes on, the one I've paid to repair, the one you've been living in for free for 9 years. We are not having this conversation again, Stephanie snarled. We told you we'll buy you out when we're ready. You can't just. You're right, I said. We're not having that conversation, because that conversation is over. I slid the second document across the table, the thick manila envelope. Nathan looked at it, confused. What's this? More of your little bills. That, I said, is a copy of a legally filed petition for a partition sale. It was filed with the county court 3 days ago. You'll be served with the original by a process server tomorrow. Frank, my lawyer, sends his regards. The color drained from Nathan's face. Stephanie just stared. What? What is that? She whispered. It's a lawsuit, I explained, as if to a child. It's what a co-owner files when the other co-owner refuses to either buy them out at a fair market price or sell the property. It forces a sale of the house, on the open market, to the highest bidder. A judge will oversee it. Our conversation about your $150,000 offer, it's irrelevant now. The market will decide. Nathan sank back into his chair, his mouth opening and closing silently. He finally understood. Stephanie, however, did not go down quietly. You can't, she hissed, her voice trembling. You wouldn't. You would make your own brother and your niece and nephew homeless over a babysitting bill. Oh, sweetie, I said, leaning forward slightly, the pain in my leg a fiery reminder of my purpose. This isn't about the babysitting. That was just the catalyst, the final insult. This is about 9 years of theft. This is about you building your luxury brand on my back. This is about you posting photos of your new SUV while I'm paying your water bill. This is about you having the audacity to call your starter home a $1.2 million asset that I own half of. I tapped the spiral-bound report. I hadn't even shown them yet. This is my audit of your finances. All those public posts, all those blessed trips, they're wonderful evidence for a judge to prove you're not destitute. You're just greedy. Nathan finally found his voice. It was a hoarse whisper. Caroline, you're destroying the family. No, Nathan, I said, my voice as cold and hard as the steel in my leg. You and she did that. You destroyed it every time you lied to me, every time you took from me, and every time you laughed and called me too responsible. You just thought I'd never send you the bill. The week that followed was a masterclass in narcissistic rage. The partition suit was served, as promised, by a very large, very unamused process server at 7 a.m. the next morning. My phone immediately exploded. First came the texts from Nathan. They started as pleading. Caro, you can't be serious. Call Frank. Stop this. We can talk. When I didn't reply, they turned angry. You're a bitter, lonely old woman. You're just jealous of what Steph and I have. Finally, they devolved into threats. You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone what you did. I'll countersue. I'll take your half for emotional distress. Stephanie, meanwhile, took a different approach. She tried to rally the family, our aunts, uncles, and cousins against me. She called everyone she could, weeping, telling them I was throwing her babies out on the street because I was bitter about my accident and lashing out. This I was prepared for. My Aunt Linda called me, her voice dripping with misplaced sympathy. Caroline, dear, she began, Stephanie is just beside herself. She says you're forcing them out of the house. Surely there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Aunt Linda, I said, my voice calm. I am forcing a sale of a shared asset, yes. But, darling, your brother, his children, to be homeless. Aunt Linda, I interrupted, did Stephanie happen to mention that they've lived there for 9 years without paying a single dollar of rent? Did she mention that they refused to buy me out, offering me $150,000 for a $600,000 asset? Did she mention that while I've been paying the taxes and repairs, they've been buying new luxury cars and taking ski vacations to Switzerland? There was a stunned silence on the line. Oh, she said, no, she didn't mention that. Did she mention, I continued, that the misunderstanding started when they demanded I, while on crutches and recovering from surgery, provide 10 days of free 24/7 childcare for their children so they could go skiing? What? Yes, and when I hired professional nannies to ensure the children's safety, because I am medically unable to care for them, they refused to pay the bill. The bill that cost less than half of what their ski passes must have. By the time I hung up, Aunt Linda was furious, but not at me. I had 2 similar calls with other relatives, and the result was the same. Stephanie's attempt to paint me as the villain backfired spectacularly. She wasn't just the antagonist, she was the star witness against herself. Nathan and Stephanie were cornered, and like all cornered animals, they got desperate. They hired a lawyer, a cut-rate bulldog type who immediately filed a countersuit. It was a work of fiction. He claimed they had an oral agreement that they could live in the house rent-free for as long as they wished, in exchange for property management and maintenance. He claimed they had invested over $100,000 in capital improvements and were demanding my half of the house as repayment. Frank, my lawyer, laughed when he read the filing. "This is paper-thin, Caroline," he said. "They have no receipts, no contracts, no proof. Property management? You've got the invoices for the landscaping you paid for. Capital improvements? What, the drab kitchen they complained about on Instagram?" "They're desperate," I said. "What's our next move?" "We don't just defend," Frank said, his voice sharp. "We attack. I'm filing a motion to have their countersuit dismissed as frivolous, and I'm filing a separate claim against Nathan in small claims court for the $4,572.50 nanny bill. We're going to bury them in legal, documented facts." The true genius of the nanny bill, I learned, was its psychological impact. It wasn't the biggest sum of money, but it was the most insulting. It was the proof of their breathtaking selfishness. The second and most powerful confrontation came not from me, but from my audit. Frank deposed Stephanie. With her own lawyer present, he calmly produced the spiral-bound report I had put together. "Mrs. Last Name," Frank began, "you claim you and your husband are unable to afford rent, and that you have no means to pay your sister for her equity." "That's right," Stephanie said, her voice full of righteous indignation. "We live on a very tight budget. We're house-poor." "House-poor," Frank repeated. He then produced the first screenshot. "Is this your public Instagram account?" Stephanie's face paled. "Yes." "And is this a photo of you in Napa, posted on October 12th, with the caption, 'Blessed'? And is this a $300 bottle of wine you're holding?" That was a work trip," she sputtered. "For my blog, it was comped." "I see," Frank said. "And was this new luxury SUV, which your husband posted on September 1st, also comped? Or does that fall under your tight budget?" He went on, page by page: the ski trip, the designer watch, the blog post about the drab $1.2 million house. With each page, Stephanie's lawyer sank lower in his chair. Then Frank delivered the killing blow. He produced the itemized grocery receipt from Golden Apple Guardians. "Mrs. Last Name, can you confirm that you and your husband left your 2 minor children for a 10-day international trip with," and I quote from the nanny's report, "half a bottle of vodka, expired yogurt, and a jar of olives in the refrigerator?" Stephanie's lawyer threw his hands up. "We are not answering that. This is harassment." "It's not harassment," Frank said, his voice like ice. "It's establishing a pattern of profound irresponsibility. My client, the co-owner of your home, was not only forced to pay your taxes and secure your property, she was also forced to feed your children while you were in Switzerland. And you have the audacity to claim she owes you money." The deposition was a disaster for them. Their lawyer called Frank the next day. The bluster was gone. "What do you want?" he asked. "It's not a negotiation," Frank replied. "It's a partition. The sale is happening. We will, however, accept a full and immediate dismissal of your frivolous countersuit. And we will be garnishing Mr. Last Name's wages for the $4,572.50, plus interest and legal fees, as soon as the small claims judgment comes through." Nathan still wasn't broken. He believed, in his core, that he could charm his way out of this. He believed he could still appeal to me as his big sister. He was wrong. The breaking point didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened, as so many family dramas do, over a holiday. Thanksgiving was approaching. The partition sale was moving forward, and a for sale sign was now staked in the front lawn of my parents' house, a bright red beacon of my resolve. The court had already approved the sale and appointed a neutral third-party realtor. The first open house was scheduled for the weekend after the holiday. Nathan and Stephanie were in a full-blown panic. Their legal challenges had been dismissed. Their Amy allies had deserted them. They were staring down the barrel of a non-negotiable, court-ordered move-out date. My Aunt Linda, a glutton for punishment, had decided to host Thanksgiving for the sake of the family. She had invited me, and she had invited Nathan and his family. Caroline, she'd pleaded on the phone, just come be the bigger person. Let him see you. I'll be there, Aunt Linda, I said, but I'm not coming to make peace. I'm coming to close this. I was mobile now, off the crutches and using a cane. I was slow, but I was steady. I arrived at my aunt's house to a room thick with tension. The entire extended family was there, milling about, avoiding eye contact with either me or Nathan. Nathan and Stephanie were huddled in a corner, looking pale and furious. They had, I noted with grim satisfaction, brought their children, clearly as a shield. I bided my time, I ate my turkey. I accepted sympathetic looks from my cousins. I was polite, I was calm, and I waited. The moment came, as I knew it would during dessert. Nathan, who had been drinking steadily, stood up. He clinked his glass with a fork. The room fell silent. I just want to say something, he began, his voice thick. I want to thank our whole family for being here. This has been the hardest year of our lives. He looked directly at me, his eyes full of practiced, self-pitying tears. Some of you know, some of you don't, that my sister, Caroline, is taking our home. A shocked murmur went through the room. This was it, the public showdown. She's kicking us out, he continued, his voice breaking. Me, Stephanie, and her own niece and nephew, just before Christmas, because of a misunderstanding, because of money. Stephanie, on cue, put her head in her hands and began to sob. I placed my fork down gently on my plate. I took a sip of water. Then I stood up, leaning on my cane. You're right, Nathan, I said, my voice carrying easily through the silent room. It is about money. It's about the $85,000 I've paid in taxes and repairs on your home for the last 9 years. It's about the $600,000 in equity you've tried to steal from me by offering $150,000. Nathan's face went white. He hadn't expected me to fight back. You're right, it's about money, I continued. Like the $4,500 I had to pay for nannies, because you demanded your sister, who was on crutches, watch your children so you could go to Switzerland. Or it's about the money for the groceries I had to buy because you left your children with no food. My Aunt Linda gasped, no food. That's right, I said, my voice hardening. Expired yogurt and vodka, that's what was in the fridge, while they, I gestured to Nathan and Stephanie, were posting photos of their fondue dinners. You're lying, Stephanie shrieked, jumping to her feet. You're twisting everything. We made improvements. We managed that house. What improvements? I asked, my voice dangerously pleasant. The kitchen you called drab on your blog, the landscaping I paid for, or the new SUV you bought the same month you let the water bill get a shut-off notice. The room was absolutely still. The entire family was staring at Nathan and Stephanie, their expressions a mix of shock and dawning disgust. The poor, victimized brother narrative had just evaporated. You're not a victim, Nathan, I said, taking a step toward him. You're a thief. You stole from our parents' estate and you tried to steal from me. You leveraged my love for this family and my grief for our parents to fund your wife's luxury lifestyle. And when I was at my lowest, when I was broken and injured, you didn't offer a hand. You saw an opportunity to take even more. I turned to the rest of the family. I am not making my brother homeless. I am selling a shared asset that he has illegally monopolized for 9 years. I am reclaiming my money, which I now need for my medical bills. The bills from the accident he couldn't be bothered to ask me about. I looked back at Nathan. His face was a ruin of shame and rage. He had no charm left, no witty comeback. He was just a small, greedy man exposed. "The open house is this Saturday," I said, my voice final. "I suggest you start packing. You are no longer welcome to live on my dime." Nathan didn't say a word. He grabbed Stephanie's arm, and without so much as a goodbye, they collected their children and stormed out of the house, the front door slamming behind them, leaving the entire family in stunned silence. I sat back down, my leg aching, and picked up my fork. The spell was broken. It was over. The aftermath was swift and definitive. The open house was a massive success. The realtor, the aggressive one Frank had hired, had staged the house beautifully after hauling 2 dumpsters worth of Nathan and Stephanie's hoarded junk out of the attic and basement. The market was hot. Within 48 hours, we had 3 all-cash offers, all significantly over the $1.2 million asking price. We sold the house for $1.35 million. Nathan and Stephanie, facing a court order, had no choice but to sign the closing papers. They were sullen, silent, and refused to make eye contact with me or Frank. The closing was done in separate rooms. The proceeds were wired to Frank's trust account. The math was simple, and this time I was the one doing it. First, the $85,000 I had paid in taxes, repairs, and insurance over 9 years was deducted from Nathan's half and paid directly to me. Second, the $4,572.50 for the nanny service, which I had won a default judgment for in small claims court when Nathan failed to appear, was also deducted from his half, with interest. Third, my legal fees for the partition suit were deducted from his half, as the court had ruled his countersuit was frivolous and filed in bad faith. By the time the final accounting was done, my $675,000 share was intact. Nathan's share, however, had shrunk to just over $570,000. It was still a massive, unearned windfall, but for him and Stephanie, it was a devastating loss. They had overplayed their hand and lost over $100,000 of their money in the process. The last I heard, they didn't buy. The housing market they had ignored for 9 years was now too expensive for them. They were forced to rent a 3-bedroom townhouse in a suburb an hour outside the city, a place with no cachet for Stephanie's brand. Nathan, I heard through my aunt, had to sell his new SUV to cover the deposit and their legal bills. As for me, I used my equity exactly as I'd intended. I paid off my medical bills in full. I bought a beautiful, accessible, 1-level condominium in a building with a pool and a gym, perfect for my ongoing physical therapy. I invested the rest, securing my retirement and ensuring I would never be financially vulnerable again. About 6 months after the sale, I received a text. It was from Leo, my nephew, on a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Auntie Caroline. Dad says we're not supposed to talk to you, but I miss you. I hope your leg is better." My heart ached. I called Frank. "Is there any way," I asked, "to set up a trust for Leo and Mia's education, funded by me, that their parents cannot touch under any circumstances?" He smiled. I can have that drafted by tomorrow. I sat on the balcony of my new home, overlooking the city. I was at peace. My leg was healing and my finances were secure. The anger was gone, replaced by a quiet sense of vindication. I had lost a brother, but I had regained myself. Nathan and Stephanie had built their lives on the assumption of my weakness, forgetting that as an auditor, my greatest strength was finding the truth, balancing the books, and making sure in the end that everyone paid exactly what they owed.